Everyone, today I am going to start your chapter 4 of civics, that is gender, religion and caste. In this chapter we will read about gender and politics, the feminism, issues related to gender division and how those issues can be resolved. Okay, the next topic is religion, communalism and politics, and we will see the problems which arises just because of these three, and then we will go through the solution of those problems. And the last topic in your book is caste and politics. In this topic we will read about caste in politics and politics in caste. Okay, so the first topic in your book is gender and politics. Students, the first thing that is responsible for the division of gender of the labor is we all consider the gender division as natural and unchangeable. Okay? However, it is not based on biology but on social expectations and stereotypes. Okay? Means the division of gender is not biological, it is a social division of labor. So on the basis of gender division of labor, there are two types of labor activities, that is public division of labor and private division of labor. Okay, public division of labor consists of all those labor activities which were performed by the men outside their home. Okay, and private division of the labor consists of all those activities which were performed by the women in their homes alone. Okay, so public activities are those labor activities which were performed by the man, and the private activities are those labor activities which were mostly performed by the woman, and this led to the sexual division of labor. Okay, so as boys and girls are brought up to believe that the main responsibility of women is household work and bringing up the children, this reflects in a sexual division of labor. Okay, as in most of the families, women do all work inside the home such as cooking, cleaning, washing clothes and looking after the children, and men do all the work outside the home. But it is not that men cannot do the household work. Of course they can do, but they simply think that it is for women to attend to these things just because of such type of thinking, that is gender division is natural and unchangeable. But when these jobs are paid, like cooking, washing, means outside the homes, in the hotels, restaurants, institutions, so when these jobs are paid, men are ready to take up this work. Most of the tailors or the cooks in the hotels are men, as we all know this. And similarly, it is not that women do not do outside their home, means it is not like that. Women, they can also do the work outside the home, but just because of these thinking, that is natural and unchangeable, we are not willing to accept this equality. As most of the women, they are engaged in the domestic household work, that is why their work is not valued, which results of the gender division of labor. That is why although the women, they constitute half of the humanity, their role in public life, especially in the field of politics, is almost minimal. Okay, in most of the societies. That led to the feminism or the feminist movement. Students, it is a movement or a belief that women and men should have equal rights and opportunities. As you have already seen this in class 9th, when you had teach in chapter 1st of history, when I am teaching you about the French Revolution. In that chapter, you read about the French Constitution of 1791. The one of the most important feature of that constitution is that women, they did not have any voting right. I hope you all remember this. So they considered as the passive citizens. So it led a huge struggle by the women, where you read that they started many women's club. So their struggle led a support throughout the world from the women and the men who advocated equal rights for both. So at last, in 1946, in France, the women, they got the equal voting right as compared to the men. So all their struggle, they came into the category of feminism or the feminist movement. So a person who advocates equal rights for both men and women, that person is considered as feminist. Okay, and it is a movement that advocated equal opportunities and rights for both men and women. Now the next topic is communalism. Student, it is very important topic of this chapter. So please, if you having the NCERT book, go through the books also. Okay, so communalism is a situation when a particular community tries to promote its own interests at the cost of other communities. Okay, and religion is the basis of difference in communalism. Okay, so the communal politics is based on the idea that religion is the principal basis of social community. Okay, in short, we can say that under communalism, people, they started to create differences on the basis of religion. Okay, when they believes that their religion is superior as compared to the other religions. Okay, so the communal politics is based on the idea that religion is the principal basis of social community. Here the word communal politics means when the political parties or a group they just try to make a difference among the people on the basis of religion. This is called communal politics. Means when religion is involved in politics by the political parties or a political group, this is called communal politics. Okay, so communalism can take several forms in politics, in everyday beliefs, formation of the parties based on the communities, campaigning or asking for the votes, and the formation of government, that I will explain you in these points. Okay, so students, the first point is communalism in our daily beliefs. This is the most common expression of communalism in everyday beliefs. Okay, this includes the religious prejudice, stereotype, and the religious communities and believe in their superiority and of one's religion over the other. Okay, means here this is the most common expression of communism which we all feels in everyday life, but we never noticed it, where we just try to make a religious prejudice, where we just try to show superiority of our religion as compared to the other religion, and we having a fixed image of the people or a person of a particular religion, and we just try to superiority of our religion on the at the cost of other religions. Okay, the next point is a communal mind often leads to a quest, means desire for the political domination of one's own religious community. In this context, for those belonging to the majority, they always takes the form of majoritarian dominance, means those who were in the majority, so on the basis of their majority, they just try to impose their will on the minorities. So in this context, those who belonging to the minority, it can take in the form of a desire to form a separate political unit that I have already explained you in chapter 1, that is the power sharing, in which I give you an example of Sri Lanka where the Sinhalese, they were in the majority and the Tamils, they were in the minority. So on the basis of their majority, the Sinhali people, they just try to impose their will onto the minority. So in this context, when the people, they having a communal mind, so it leads to a quest, means desire for their political domination of their own religious community. So in this case, the people who are in the minority, they also having a quest to take a desire form of separate political unit, as the Sri Lankan Tamils, they have the desire to form a separate political unit when they didn't got any part in the government. Okay. The next point is political mobilization on religious line is another frequent form of communalism. Okay. This involves use of the secret symbols, religious leaders, emotional appeals, okay, and plain fare in order to bring the followers of one religion together in the political arena. Okay. In electoral politics, it is often involves special appeals to the interest or the emotions of the voters of one religion in preference of the other. So this is another form where we see the communalism in politics. It's another form where we see that the political parties or the leader, they just try to mobilize the people on the basis of religious line, where they started to use the secret symbols, the religious leaders, and they make some emotional appeals where they ask them to vote them just because they belongs to their religion, not on the basis of their qualification or work, but just because they belongs to the same religion. So they urge the people and they make the emotional appeals to them to give them vote. This also led to the spread of communalism. Okay. And the last point is sometimes the communalism takes its ugly form, okay, of the communal violence and massacre, means होता है मार काट. So sometimes the communalism takes its most ugly form of communal violence, riots and massacre, means India and Pakistan, means the partition of India and Pakistan, in which thousands of people from both the communities, that is from Hindus and the Muslim, they killed. So this is the most ugliest form of communalism, where it convert into the massacre and the riots. Okay. So the partition of India is the best example of communal riots or communalism. Okay. So it is very important to combat the philosophy of communalism. That is why the makers of our constitution were very much aware of this challenge of communalism. That is why they adopted a principle of secular state. This you have already in class 6th, 7th, 8th, okay, and 9th also. So under which there is no official religion for the Indian state. This all you know. Okay. Means there is no official religion for the Indian state, unlike the status of Buddhism in Sri Lanka, that of Islam in Pakistan. Okay. So you all know that what is a secular state, students. A secular state is that state which do not have the religion of its own, where all the religions are treated equally. Okay. The next point is all the citizens have right to profess, practice and propagate any religion or not to follow it. As a citizen of a country, each and every citizen have a right to profess, practice and propagate any religion of his choice or not to follow any religion. Okay, it's up to him or her. And the last one is the Constitution prohibits discrimination on the grounds of religion. Means no one can make a discrimination on the grounds of religion. So these are the principles of a secular state which prevent the spread of communalism. Okay, students, now we will see caste and politics. This is the most important topic of this chapter, and this is also a very confusing topic, as we will see the role of caste in politics and politics in caste. So first we will see the role of caste in Indian politics. Okay, here I have given you the points, and the explanation of these points I will provide you through the notes in your WhatsApp group. So please see the points here, and I will explain here also. So the first point, the first role of caste in politics is that while choosing the candidates, means when the political parties they choose the candidates at the time of elections, they having the caste composition of that constituency in their mind. Means when the parties choose the candidates in the elections, they keep in mind the caste composition of that electorate and nominates the candidates from different castes so as to get necessary support to win the elections. Okay. Next point is while forming a government, means after winning the election, when the governments are formed, political parties usually take care that representatives of different castes and tribes find a place in it. Okay, means when there is a formation of the government, the political parties they always try to include all the members of different caste communities in the formation of government. Okay, the next point is while campaigning, it means prachar, chunav prachar. Okay, especially at the time of elections. Okay, so while campaigning, the political parties and the candidates in the elections make appeals to the people to give them their vote not on the basis of caste, on the basis of caste. Means political parties and the candidates in the elections make appeals to people to give them their votes on the basis of caste. Some political parties are known to favor some castes and are seen as their representative. BSP, Bahujan Samaj Party, is the best example of this, where we see that most of the leaders of this party they always try to make some emotional appeals to the people to give them vote on the basis of caste. Okay, and the last point is the principle of one person one vote. That is, you already read in the previous classes where you read about the universal adult franchise, where all the citizens have right to cast vote on the principle of one person, one vote. This also compelled the political parties or the leaders to raise the caste-based issues during elections. They do so to mobilize and secure the political support. Okay. I hope you all are able to understood those points. Now we will see the role of caste in politics. In this we will see both the positive and the negative role of caste in politics. So first we will see the positive role of caste in politics. So in some society, in some conditions and the situations, expression of caste differences in the politics gives many disadvantaged communities the space to demand their due share of power. Means when caste is expressed in politics, it provides a chance to those disadvantaged, means the backward class people, SCs, STs and the OBCs communities, to demand their share of power. Okay, means when caste is expressed in the politics, it is very good, or it provided a chance for all those backward communities who can demand for their due share of power. Okay, the next point is in this sense, caste politics helped the people from the backward classes and the caste to gain better access to the decision making. Means when they got a chance to share the power, they just try to part of the government, and in this context they gain the better access to be a part of decision making. Okay, now we will see the negative aspects of caste in politics, and the first one is it disrupts the social harmony. Okay, means the extensive use of caste in politics also led the disrupt of social harmony. Okay, and the next point is it can divert the attention from the core issues like the poverty, corruption, unemployment, etc. Means the excessive involvement of caste in politics also divert the attention from the core issues like these. Now we will see the last topic of this chapter, that is different aspects of life in which women are discriminated or disadvantaged in India. You already read this topic in the previous classes also. Here I have given you the points, explanation I will give you in notes. Okay, so the first point where they are considered as discriminated or disadvantaged is literacy rate. If we'll see the literacy rate of the women as compared to the men, they are still very behind. Means according to the census of 2011, the literacy rate among the women in India is only 65.46% as compared to the 82.14% among the men. So you can see the disadvantage or discrimination faced by the women. Okay, the next is unpaid work. Okay, so under this, the proportion of the women among the highly paid and the valued job is still very small. Though on an average, the Indian woman works 1 hour more than an average man every day, but most of them are not paid equally, and therefore their work is not valued. That I explained you previously. Okay, so as most of the women, they are engaged in the non-economic activities, means they were not engaged in those work for which they were paid, so their work is not valued even though they did 1 hour more than an average man. The next point is sex ratio. As in many parts of India, parents prefer to have sons and find ways to have the girl child aborted before she is born. This has led to a decline in the child sex ratio, that is the number of girl children per thousand boys. So in the country is merely 940, okay, according to the census of 2011. This is the sex ratio of the country, means we have 940 girls in per 1000 boys. This is very low as we compare it with the other western countries, okay. And the last point is domestic violence. There are reports of various kind of harassment, exploitation and the violations and violence against the women both in urban as well as in the rural areas have become unsafe for women, as they are not safe even within their own homes from beating and other form of domestic violence, okay. I hope these four are the very common points. You all know this, that such type of discriminations they face in their everyday life. So students, our chapter is completed now. I just tried to cover all the important points of this chapter. So please see these topics in your NCERT book also. It will help you a lot. This is the most tricky chapter of this book. So be serious and study well. I have told you many times that if you having any problem, please ask me, as you are the board students now. So you need to be very serious, okay. So please, this is a very important chapter of this book, and it is also very important in context of your board examination. So please be aware and do the work properly. Still, if you having any problem, ask me. I told you hundreds time, okay. So please do your work properly, see the videos, and if you having any queries, ask the teachers. We are always here to help you, okay. Thank you.